pre-malignant conditions of the oral cavity. As you know, the oral cavity extends from the lips anteriorly to the junction of the hard palate and the soft palate posteriorly, superiorly, and the junction of the anterior one third, anterior two third, and the posterior one third of the tongue inferiorly. On both the sides, the anterior tonsillar pillars are the posterior limit of the oral cavity. So, most of the oral malignancies are squamous cell carcinomas, and many of these squamous cell carcinoma arise from some lesions called pre-malignant lesions. So now there are two entities. One is a pre-malignant lesion and some pre-malignant condition. So what are these pre-malignant lesions? A morphologically altered tissue in which the oral cancer is more likely to occur than its apparently normal counterpart. So the examples of these pre-malignant lesions are leukoplakia, erythroplakia, and melanosis. We'll be discussing about the leukoplakia and the erythroplakia in this class. There are some pre-cancerous conditions. They are a generalized state associated with a significantly increased risk of cancer. So what are these lesions? They are the oral lichen planus, submucous fibrosis, epidermolysis bullosa, and discoid lupus erythematosus. Unless a case of a pre-malignant lesion where the chance of developing a malignancy in the same lesion. So in these conditions, the oral malignancy can develop in other sites apart from the exactly site of these lesions. So coming to leukoplakia. Leukoplakia is defined as a white patch that cannot be characterized clinically or pathologically as any other disease. This is the definition given by WHO in 1978. So while defining this, it does not take the pathology into consideration. That means some other white lesions which are well defined like oral lichen planus, submucous fibrosis, hyperplastic candidiasis, they are not leukoplakia even though they are also white patches. We need to remember this. Actually, the term leukoplakia was introduced in 1877 by Swimmer, an Hungarian dermatologist, and in 1968, Windberg et al. Had defined oral leukoplakia as a white patch or plaque not less than 5 mm in diameter, which could not be removed by rubbing and which could not be classified as any other diagnosable disease. However, in 1978, WHO modified this definition slightly by taking out the constraint of 5 mm because they found that the malignancy can develop even if the lesion is less than 5 mm in diameter. Now, what is the etiology of pre-malignant conditions? Basically, the etiology of pre-malignant conditions are also the etiology of oral cancers. Among these, the prominent are smoking and smokeless tobacco. So smoking and smokeless tobacco are the important etiological factors for oral malignancies as well as the development of oral pre-malignant lesions. When combined with alcohol, even though alcohol as such is not a major risk factor than as that of smoking, when combined with tobacco, and if a person is taking tobacco and alcohol together, this will have a larger adverse effect because the hydrocarbons, which harmful hydrocarbons which does not usually dissolve in saliva, are dissolved in alcohol and absorbed to develop into malignant change. And arachidonate chewing is also one of the pre-malignant conditions described. However, the exact relation of this arachidonate into develop into oral malignancy is not very well proved. However, arachidonate is a etiological factor for development of oral submucous fibrosis. Among others, repeated trauma due to a ill-fitting denture, sometimes even a sharp tooth are the etiological factors for this pre-malignant and oral malignancies by causing repeated trauma to one particular site. And what are the sites of development of this leukoplakia? The common sites are the buccal mucosa, oral commissures, flora of the mouth, and the hard palate. However, the leukoplakia can be seen in any part of the oral mucosa. It is seen in most commonly in the fourth decade of life, fourth decade or later, and it is more common in males, probably because of the habit of smoking and tobacco chewing, more common in males. And coming to the different types of leukoplakia, we have homogeneous leukoplakia, which is a thin, flat, and homogeneous white appearance, and we have a nodular or specular leukoplakia, where the patches are nodular in nature. There are erosive erythroleukoplakia, white patches interspersed with red patches. And we have warty looking verrucous leukoplakia. So this picture shows the different types of leukoplakia. Here there is a homogeneous leukoplakia where it is a uniform white patch. We have a nodularity here in this picture. This is a nodular leukoplakia. We have the white patches interspersed with the red patches, erythroleukoplakia. And here the warty looking lesion that is called a verrucous leukoplakia. Now, histological appearance, even though leukoplakia is a clinical diagnosis, if we take a biopsy or if we excise it and send it for histopathology, we can see variable degree of dysplasia and there may be hyperkeratosis. The dysplasia may vary from mild to severe, and depending on the amount of dysplasia, the potential for malignance changes. In general, the malignant potential varies. There are numerous studies on leukoplakia, and the malignant potential reported is of wide range. It varies from 1 to 17.5% in certain studies. However, in certain studies it range from 0.13 to 34%. In general, there will be five-fold more risk of getting malignancy in patients with oral leukoplakia than the general population. And if the lesions are dysplastic, the risk of developing malignancy increases 15 times than a non-dysplastic lesions. And the risk of malignancy varies from site and the type. As we know, it is more the chance of development of malignancy is more on lesions on the floor of the mouth and ventral aspect of the tongue. Why it is more here? Because the floor of the mouth is an area which is a dependent area, and the carcinogens stays here for a longer time than a non-dependent area like a palate. Since the floor of mouth is almost like a cul-de-sac, the carcinogens stays there more, and the chance it gets more chance for absorption. And the erythroleukoplakia a is having a more malignant potential than a homogeneous type of leukoplakia. And how we manage this leukoplakia? If there is a homogeneous, a tiny patch, not looking aggressive, and if the patient is agreeing for regular follow-up, then you can just observe after removal of the causative agent. Now, what is this causative agent? If the patient has a sharp tooth, treat it. If the patient is having an ill-fitting denture, then change it. And if the patient is a smoker and if he chews tobacco, then change the habit. If the patient is ready for this, then you can ask him to come for regular follow-up with some nutritional supplementation. But if the patient is not able to come for regular follow-up, or if the lesion is an aggressive type like a erythroleukoplakia or a nodular type, then there is a need for biopsy. Either you can plan for a diagnostic biopsy by taking a small lesion and send it for histopathological examination, or you can plan for a complete excision and send it for a histopathological examination. However, even after excision, and if there is a dysplasia in the histopathology, then you need to ask the patient for regular follow-up. There is something called supravital staining with the toluidine blue, where you can use that stain before you take a biopsy by applying toluidine blue in the lesions, and after a few minutes wash it with the acetic acid. You can see which are the areas which take up this dye, and you can take a biopsy from this representative sites. That is a technique where the chance of having a more representative biopsy. Now the other type, that is the erythroplakia. So as we define leukoplakia as white patch, the WHO has defined erythroplakia as a red patch that cannot be characterized as any other definable lesion. Here the red color is actually due to the reduced keratinization of the mucosa, hence the submucosal vessels become prominent. Erythroplakia is rarer than leukoplakia, which accounts for less than 1% of all oral mucosal lesions, and it is common in lower alveolus, gingiva buccal sulcus, floor of the mouth, palate, and in the retromolar trigone. Erythroplakia is also classified as homogeneous, where it is a uniform appearing red patch, speckled or granular, where there are tiny nodules of nodular red lesions are seen, or it may be erythroleukoplakia, as I already discussed, leukoplakia along with the erythroplakia, a red and a white lesions, white patches mixed. And if you take a biopsy, it shows a severe dysplasia, unlike that of a leukoplakia, where the dysplasia may be mild, moderate, or severe. And many times we find a frank malignancy in patients with the erythroleukoplakia when we take a bit for histopathological examination. And the malignant potential is higher, it is 17 times higher than the leukoplakia. And the treatment here is always, you cannot advise for follow-up if the patient is having erythroleukoplakia, because you know that the chance of developing malignancy is higher. So always advise a biopsy of the lesion or a complete excision biopsy. And has if the patient is lucky enough that it is not malignancy and it is showing only dysplasia, you need to ask the patient for regular follow-up. So that's about the pre-malignant lesions.